Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Business Beyond the Beach in partnership with our friends here at Miami Community Newspapers. My name is Brittnie Bassant. I am the president and CEO of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to our coffee sponsor, Maman, for generously sponsoring the coffee for these series. They have locations across the county, but of course, our favorite location is their Sunset Harbor location in South Beach. Today, I have with me as my guest, Eric Mathurin with Mathurin Financial Group. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Brittnie. Always good to see you.
This is awesome. Okay, so you are a financial advisor and you've built this incredible reputation as a financial advisor and you have Mathurin Financial Group, but you are also just a true problem solver. So talk to me a little bit about this philosophy, how it shaped the way that you work with your clients, how you lead your firm. Tell me what that means to you.
Okay, so I try to position myself as a problem solver because like what I've learned about financial advisors in the business is that a lot of them just tend to want to, again, sell a product. And I just typically try to solve problems, right? So if what I do is I listen, I identify the problems that these clients have, and then I try to come up and draft solutions for these clients. And so that's how I lead my firm. It's not about like sales or sales quotas. It's more about solving particular problems that clients tend to have.
That's amazing. We'll talk about what some of those problems are, and I really want to know some misconceptions about the financial world and financial planning industry, and we'll get to all of that. But you're not new at this by any means. You have been doing this for almost, or maybe even over 2 decades. You've worked with some of the largest firms across the country. So what inspired you to launch Mathurin Financial Group, to really go out on your own and say, I'm going to do it?
Well, it's a long story. So if we had like maybe 2 hours, I'd probably tell you. Yeah, I know we don't. But just to make a long story short, right? So I started in financial services in 2004. I was 14 years old. I was
that's called child labor, but that's cool.
Yeah.
14 years old. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Of course. Absolutely. So you started really young.
Yes, I started really young. I was a freshman in high school. We started cold calling. Me and a couple of my buddies from high school, we started cold calling for a mortgage company. Paid us really well. It was probably like, $13 an hour. So a couple of my buddies and I, we would just, after school, would go to this office in Long Island, New York, and we'd call people up and see if they needed any help with refinancing on their home or, buying a house or whatnot. And then like I stayed into it up until 2008 when the financial crisis happened. And what I noticed was that a lot of people were losing their homes, losing their jobs, and a lot of people went through a lot of financial hardship as a result of that. And so what I decided to do was, like I said, okay, well, I'll get out of the business because now we're in a financial crisis. And so I graduated from high school, went to St. John's University, got a finance degree, and decided to get into wealth management to make sure that families never go through what I witnessed in 2008. So that's how, I decided to get into that. And so, yeah, it's been 20 years working in financial services.
That's absolutely incredible. And so, Mr. Problem Solver, you work with business owners, you work with professionals, you work with families, you work with them to uncover blind spots and then advise them on, how to tackle those financial blind spots, of course, right? And so you work with them on to discover them, and then how do we tackle them and how do we fix them and solve them? So tell me a little bit about what some of those blind spots can be and how you would address them. And then also if you want to throw in there some like common misconceptions that people might have.
Right. So there's a lot of common misconceptions about like financial planning. A lot of people look at it as like a luxury, but it's more so of a necessity.
I love that.
Yeah. So like people tend to pretty much look at like financial planning as like, oh, wow, like I need a financial planner. But then like they don't go out and get one because they just like, a lot of people don't want to tackle or address their issues such as spending habits or how they look at money. Right. And so the misconception is that, yeah, financial planning, you have to be rich to have a financial advisor. No. You need a financial advisor, period. And then also, as far as like I think your other question was, what was your other question? I forget.
The most common blind spots.
So
The misconception is that you have to be rich to have a financial advisor. No,
Sure.
Everyone needs. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. So all right, I've gone out. I've identified my financial advisor. Now, what are we looking for? No idea.
Right. So
you talked about a little bit spending habits, and I don't want anyone asking me about my spending habits.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody has like a majority of people have spending habits. Even your best financial advisor spends, I'm sure. As far as like blind spots, the common blind spots is like just not having a plan, right? Like you might make a lot of money, right? We call those people like Henrys. So those are called high earners, not rich yet individuals. So we call them Henrys, where like they think they're making a good amount of money. Maybe they're making 250,000, 300,000, but they maybe have just one house. They think that's enough, or, but they have children and they want to, you want to make sure that you're leaving a legacy for them and whatnot. So, but you don't have a plan, right? You might not even have an estate plan, right? Like adequate life insurance. There's a lot of different blind spots that you can find when you start the process of financial planning. So there's not one common one. There's just a whole bunch, right? So it's just the plan is the blind spot, right? You don't have one. So I think that's the main thing there.
And so that's where Eric comes into play, because you help to create these plans. You do everything from, just investment management to succession planning to retirement strategies. And so tell me about the approach in creating, because I think you have an approach where you create very holistic plans that work really well for the individual or the business that you're working with. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So the holistic plan basically involves everything. It goes into legacy, family, day-to-day habits, like psychology. There's this really good book that I like called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Hauser. I get his name wrong, I'm sorry, but it's called The Psychology of Money. And again, it's all about behavioral finance, right? It talks about how we look at money and how we look at how it grows, how it affects, public policy, how it funds our roads and schools and so on. And so if we can understand how money works, I think you could become a little bit more informed. And I was saying this earlier to one of your staff members, Tiffany. It's like, if you understand how your money works, you're educated and you're informed. And then if you're really confident about like your knowledge of it, then it forces you to act. And so we'll get into that in a few. But as far as like my motto, which is like educate, empower, and execute, I think, when you're informed, you feel confident, and it forces you to act. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's a great way of approaching it, though. And I think it just makes it really, it sort of takes away whatever anxiety that individuals may have about this. A lot of people, like you said earlier, they just don't want to think about it. They don't want to address it. They'll put it off, and I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it later, and I'll deal with it later. And you're stripping away that, and you're saying like, this is what's actually going to, make the most sense for you now, and you make it easy and you make it accessible. And I think that that's really important, especially when you're speaking with, you're talking about money, you're talking about financial planning, you're talking about those things. So I love that approach. Another approach that you have that your clients really value is that you are very hands-on with your clients. So talk to me a little bit about that, what that means to you, why that's so important to you, how it really sets you apart in, wealth management and financial planning.
Yeah, that's a good question. So like when I was, so you mentioned that I was working at some of the biggest firms in the country, right? Like JP Morgan, Citigroup. One of the things that I learned there was that when you're talking to a client, you got to get to know them, right? It's not about like, hey, I'm going to figure out how to get the sale or close it, because in those environments, it's always like, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Glenn Ross, where he's like, always be closing. That's what it was like in those environments. You always got to close and make the sale just to make middle management look good. But then I did learn something from some really good mentors over there, which was something called a forum. It's an acronym for family, occupation, recreation, understanding the goal, and making a recommendation. Which basically, when you're having that initial conversation with a client, you want to talk about their family. right? Like, you're married, how long you been married for, you got kids, what do you do for work? Do you like it? Recreation, what do you do for fun? Understanding them. So you gather all that information and then you make a recommendation to them as far as like how they should move forward. I think that hands-on approach allows you to establish a connection with that client. Like I always joke around and I say, I even know my clients' dogs' names, right? Or pets' names, right? Because I think that's like important to really know them, because then you can make a really good recommendation for them. And you have skin in the game. You're pretty much part of the family. And so that's that hands-on approach that makes me, I think, stand out from other financial advisors out there.
You talked a little bit about these firms that you worked with, and obviously working at some of these large, really well-known, like national firms.
Sure.
You're managing very high net worth assets and portfolios.
Yeah.
And so what lessons did you learn in your early career that still guide you today now that you have your own financial group?
When I worked at these firms, I managed over $150 million in assets. And again, look, everybody looks at managing assets like people outside of the industry. They think it's complicated. It's not. You just got to invest in like really good firms and just do your research, do your homework. And that's the easy part, I think, for me. The harder part is to just basically make sure that like every client, like you got to make sure you treat every client like they're worth 10 million, right? And I was saying this earlier, like if a client has let's say they have $200,000 in assets, maybe they have $1 to their name, just treat every client like they're worth $10 million. I think like these firms pretty much teach you a certain lesson as far as how to manage money, but I think like it's about the experience that you take out of it as far as like the people that you come across. And so what I learned from those firms was to treat everyone like, they're worth $1 million or $10 million or whatever. And I think that was the compliment that I got a lot at those firms, that, hey, Eric, you treat everybody, like they're $1 million. And I was like, yeah, of course. And I think it works. So, yeah.
And I think it's that human factor too, right? And that's what you can bring when we're not knocking big firms, we're not knocking big organizations, but at times you go from being a person or a name to sort of being a number. And so when you're able to have that human factor and have that connection to your clients and know their pets' names and be a part of their family, that speaks volumes to the work that you do. So Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
We're going to pivot a little bit. We're still going to talk about, financial literacy, but we're going to talk about what I think now is your passion, which is really helping the next generation. So a little birdie told me that you are developing a children's book and platform centered around financial literacy, which I think is incredible. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I haven't started writing yet, but I am in the beginning stages of writing a children's book, right? So like I have never worked in like children's. I've never worked at a school. I don't have children at the moment.
Before you talk about the book and what it's going, why is teaching financial literacy to the next generation so important to you?
It's important because when I was growing up, and I'm sure when you were growing up, I don't think our parents or the schools that we went to, as maybe you went to a really good school. I think I went to a really good high school, and we didn't get that education. They didn't tell us what a checking account did or how compound interest works, or the stock market and how it affects everything, right? Like they didn't tell us that. And so I thought if our kids know about that, they're a little bit more informed, they are able to understand money in a certain way where it helps them lead better, it helps them vote better, and it helps them grow their families better. So I think financial literacy for the children will help our society become a better one.
All right, so talking about this book, what age range are we targeting? What's this platform like?
So,
are there going to be like little like stuffed toy props with the book? I mean, like I want to know everything here.
Right. So no. So I'm this is basically an initiative that I want to get started, which is start a book. I'm also building a platform that's going to revolutionize the way parents and families fund the futures of their children. I want kids to have a head start, not just like trust fund babies, right? Like I want like an ordinary family to be able to fund their kids' future effectively. It's not cool. Financial planning isn't cool. And so I want to make that cool, and I want to make it mainstream. And so I want to build a platform that does that. So right now I'm just researching how do I, get that message across where it resonates with everyone. And so that's something that's really important to me.
That's so exciting, and we'll stay tuned for updates on this because I think it's going to be a really fun journey for you. We want to know. We want to be posted and updated along the way. A couple more questions for you. If you had to sum up what you believe your mission is as a wealth advisor in just a few words, what would you say?
Again, it goes back to my motto, the 3 E's: educate, empower, and execute. Right. So it's again making sure that everyone's informed and educated on their on the options that they have financially, right? Like what they're able to do financially, their limitations, and their what's ahead of them. And then once you're informed, you can then be empowered. Once you're confident, you can act and execute a plan, right? So that pretty much sums up everything, right? So that motto right there is just pretty much how I lead my company.
I absolutely love that. And educate, empower, and execute. And it's just no coincidence that they all start with the letter E for Eric.
Yeah.
So that just ties the alliteration completely through and completely together.
Right.
We're getting ready to wrap up here, Eric. My last question to you is if you can go back to the beginning of your career and talk to your younger self, what advice would you give him?
What advice would I give my younger self? I would say to not just kind of think outside the box. Just think outside the box. Don't just kind of go against the grain every now and then. It's okay to do that. So just think outside the box.
Think outside the box. Well, from cold calling at the age of 14 to mortgage companies to now having Mathurin Financial Group and building a platform that's going to revolutionize the way that parents and families fund their children's futures, I think you are definitely thinking outside the box. So you are following your own advice, and we applaud you for that, Eric. This has been a great conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you guys for watching and listening into another episode of Business Beyond the Beach, brought to you in partnership with our friends here at Miami Community Newspapers. My name is Brittnie Bassant, President and CEO of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce. Again, thank you to Maman, our coffee sponsor for our series. They have locations across the county, but we love their Sunset Harbor location in South Beach. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for another episode next week.